My name is Bob Prucell. I'm the director of the Hafen-Redfer Museum, and I'd like to welcome you to our wonderful event today. Before I introduce our speaker, I would like to say a few words about the fact that we have a reception following this event at Manning Hall, and you'll be able to meet with our speaker in a more intimate environment. You'll also be able to see the new exhibit that Bill Simmons curated called In Deo Speramus, which was done in connection with Brown's 250th anniversary. The Barbara A. Hale and the Edward G. Hale lecture was established in 2003 to honor Barbara and Edward's contribution to the Hafen-Redfer Museum and Brown University, and Barbara is here. I'm very pleased to acknowledge her. Barbara, will you raise your hand if you don't mind? Thank you. Barbara is the former deputy director and curator of the Hafen-Redfer Museum and a noted scholar of Native American art and culture, and she really redefined the museum's role in interpreting Native American art. Barbara retired in 2002 after 33 years of devoted service to the museum and Brown University. Edward Hale was the associate dean at Brown University from 1970 to 1989, and he was an enthusiastic supporter of the museum and president of its Friends Association. Our speaker this evening is someone I've known for quite a while, Mateo Romero, who is an award-winning contemporary artist who has exhibited internationally in Canada and the United States. Mateo was born and raised in Berkeley, California. His father, Santiago Romero, was a well-known painter from Coche de Pueblo who studied with Dorothy Dunn, the famous Santa Fe Indian School. Mateo attended Dartmouth College and worked with the acclaimed artists Ben Frank Moss and Varjan Bogazian. He received his MFA in printmaking from the University of New Mexico. He has held a prestigious Dubin Fellowship in painting at the School of American Research in Santa Fe, during which time he wrote part of the book that he's published entitled Painting the Underworld Sky, and I recommend it to you highly. You can actually download the introduction of the book. And let me just share with you some of the text from his introduction. He writes, "How have we come to this place, this cold, hard, killing ground? How have we come to this fourth world, a world of violence, darkness, greed, lack of compassion for human life, punctuated with brief flashes of light and hope? Today, our wars are waged over energy, not geographical boundaries. Today, our violence is against our own people in the form of economic peonage that so often coincides with the color of the skin. Some 500 years ago, Columbus got lost at sea, landed on the island of Hispaniola, unloaded his mercenary killers of men, their war horses, cannons, slaves, and started an epic holocaust of Native American human beings throughout the New World. Although much talk is given to chemical and biological weapons in the present time, the originators of this concept are the descendants of the first homicidal prospectors of this continent who handed out smallpox-infected blankets to Indians during the bitter North winters." Mateo is an outspoken advocate of Native American rights, and he was the youngest litigant in the original Harjo et al. Lawsuit against the National Football League, protesting the demeaning name of the Washington team. I should also mention that Mateo is one of the Chongo brothers. His brother, Diego, is also a well-known ceramic artist, and together they've collaborated on exhibits and video projects that have offered sharp critiques of the fields of art, archaeology, and anthropology, my own field. In Pueblo cultures, the hero twins are linked to the war gods, which are embodied in the war chiefs that exist in Pueblo communities, and they're traditional leaders and protectors of the community. I like to think of the Chongo brothers as serving some of these roles today, but for a contemporary world. Mateo lives at Pewaukee Pueblo with his wife, Melissa Talachi, who's here, herself a well-known potter and administrator at Pewaukee Pueblo, and their children, Eric, Povey, now a freshman at Dartmouth and sitting right here in the front row, and Rain. So please join me in giving Mateo a warm welcome to Brown.
Is my mic on? One, two. Okay, great. Do the lights go down more than this? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So thank you for that wonderful introduction. And thanks for coming today. I appreciate you guys coming out here. I'm going to run through about 40 slides relatively quick, and Then we'll open it up for a brief discussion if you guys have questions or comments you want to make. Much of what you'll see in my slides is actually a different type of work than what Bob references. Bob is speaking of a sort of earlier kind of position I had in regards to Native art and culture, which is a sort of dynamic kind of intellectual lecturing style and earlier lawsuits and things like that. A lot of what I do now is actually kind of figure ground painting of Rio Grande Pueblo figures. So we'll have some older slides cut in with the newer ones too. So one way you might think of it is earlier work more content-based, later work maybe more subject matter-based in terms of a way of looking at it. And this is the image of me in my studio in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And it's a remarkable studio space. I feel very fortunate to be able to do what I do. I paint in the old Janet Lippincott studio on Upper Canyon Road. This is an image of Rio Grande deer dancers. A lot of what I do with the later work is kind of mixed media photography. So I take images of people from San Juan, Okeowinge Pueblo, and I kind of transfer them into a picture plane or a canvas, and I paint on top of them back into them. A lot of figure ground stuff. It's got references to maybe like Fritz Scholder's work, Earl Biss. This is, actually this composition, I refer to it as a trinary. It's got this little three-part figure sort of composition. This is a binary. These are eagle dancers. I think they're Zuni eagle dancers. One of the ways I look at painting in this type of style that I use, it's sort of a place that I kind of hang paint. So I take photographic information and then I kind of paint back into it. I paint on top of it, and so it's kind of a place where paint kind of meets photography, and it kind of vibrates a little bit, hopefully at the edge. These are my own photographs. I take a lot of my own shots occasionally. I use existing photography. Mostly it's my own. These are eagle dancers. People ask me a lot why I use 2s and 3s and 4s and things like that. I actually started doing it because I just like the kind of positive and negative space that was created by the way the figures kind of come together. I think they form some interesting spaces. If you look at it long enough, you'll see little like hearts and little kind of butterflies and shapes and stuff between the figures. Also, in the Rio Grande Pueblos, there's, as Bob mentioned, an association with hero twin mythology, and even in terms of moieties or major clan associations, there's a summer-winter clan in almost every major Rio Grande village. So sometimes the two figures will have references to summer and winter. How many people have ever been to New Mexico and seen a dance in a village? Oh yeah, quite a few. Look at that. Okay. I was going to say, probably a lot of people in the audience won't really make a direct association with the dances, but these are our dances. This is our eagle dance. This is deer with a sort of, I don't know, kind of an abstracted Pueblo kind of vigas in the background with shadows. And it's got the 1-2 thing going on again. This is my daughter, Jopovi. She's actually here today. She's a freshman at Dartmouth College this year, and we're very, very honored and pleased to have her with us. This is her before she goes out to dance at Pewaukee Pueblo for the Pewaukee Pueblo Feast Day, and she's wearing, you get just a hint of the manta, she's wearing a buffalo Malinche manta underneath the shawl. And then, some of the more kind of like, I don't know, sort of intangibles about it. I like the idea of photographs as being a place to hang paint. I also like the idea of a kind of collision between photography. So a place where a photograph is photographic, but it's sort of not. And paintings are paintings, but they have elements of photography, and photographs become non-photographic. So it's kind of a place where things become sort of intangible. and kind of ephemeral even. I mean, if you think about, if you take a photograph and it's kind of literal, and if you think about what it looks like before you paint it, it's really just like a black and white silk screen. It's like a figure ground. It's like this kind of screen on a picture plane. But then I like to add in surface and texture, and you can't really see it from the slide, but there's a lot of motion in this, and all this stuff is actually really heavy, kind of palette knife application. It's very direct. The paint is sort of alla prima and just put right in directly, and it's kind of playful. I like to think of it as a kind of, painting the ineffable, that something starts as a blank, and then the photograph occupies a space in the way you think of it as a drawing occupying it, and then the paint and the color and the kind of feeling of it, the emotion of it, is sort of the ineffable. It's kind of the middle passage that people can't really see until it becomes manifest. I can't really see it until it becomes manifest. These are buffalo dancers, kind of a northern New Mexico landscape. Sky is very active, kind of a suggestion of mesa tops, perhaps, the very top of the picture plane. This is a painting, non-photographic, just a painting. There's no photography at all. It's an image of eagle dancer with just these kind of pop references, Coke bottles floating around. And in the work I do, a lot of it is referential to kind of like a pop art sensibility, because a lot of it uses photography. So it's got direct references to pop. It's also got a lot of references to abstract expressionism, because a lot of the backgrounds are really sort of heavily, thickly painted passages with sort of luscious paint and very sensual paint and kind of drips and sort of palette marks and things like that. So it's been described by people who write about it as nostalgic, as being kind of like obsessed with nostalgia for 1960s New York painting. And this is a piece, it's also just a painted image. The central figure is painted in tar. It's roofing tar. And then the background's done in oil paint. It's based on the cover of Akwesasne's Notes, Voices of Wounded Knee. I don't know if you guys have seen that document, but it's a pretty amazing photographic document of the, was it 1974 occupation of Wounded Knee? I think it was 74. And on the cover of it, it has this native guy with a rifle, and he's kind of looking out into the Badlands. And so I took that image and sort of appropriated it or reappropriated it and made this image, which is very much about atmosphere and kind of figure ground relationships and positive and negative space. But also it has this kind of enduring quality. I think it's kind of timeless in the sense that it deals with the struggle that people, that mankind sort of engages in. In this sense, it's based on the 74 occupation of Wounded Knee in South Dakota, but in a larger sense, I think it's just a kind of timeless motif about conflict and confrontation. Here's the two eagles again. And you can see it's got little like abstract expressionist references like to Pollock, little drippies and splatters. It's got little like lines of white kind of lightning kind of moving through it. So it's kind of stark maybe. This is an image, it's just a painting. There's no photograph involved. It's a line of dancers from Santo Domingo Pueblo. It's a corn dance. Every village has, in the Rio Grande world, has summer and winter clans, and they also have a corn dance or a feast day. And the Spanish, when they come into the area initially as conquerors, write about the dance and talk about it as a tablita dance because of the tablet that the women wear, the yellow and green tablet on top of the women's heads. But it's an alternation of male-female. And then in this particular one, this is a winter clan. This is the turquoise kiva at San Domingo. And the men have turquoise sort of body paint. I'm not sure where they get it, but maybe it's a lapis or something like that. But they have this kind of really interesting turquoise body paint they put on. And the summer clan actually puts on a kind of iron oxide from La Bajada. They put the iron oxide on from the red. So this is the winter. And it's got active sky in the top. It's got some really interesting references to northern New Mexico landscape. It's very direct. This is Nanababek. I did a series of nudes, which I've been doing my whole life. I've always been interested in landscape and nude. This is Victor Beck's, is it granddaughter? Daughter, Victor Beck's daughter. And she posed for a series of images. It's Melissa's pot she's holding. It's one of my wife's pots with a little bear paw medicine reference to it in the pot. And I thought it was interesting. I thought it was very tastefully done. It's got little T.C. Cannon references with a little like rug at the bottom. But it was actually very controversial because it's a photographic depiction of a nude Native woman. So if you draw something or paint it, it's considered part of a kind of like a lexicon about nudes and history. But if you actually take a photographic interpretation of someone and put it into a picture, people get really like spun up, I guess. There she is again. This is an Apache crown dancer. It's kind of hard to see from the slide, but it's got really nice surface. The facture of the paint and just the kind of directness of the surface, I think, is pretty interesting. Oh, did I hit something? That was me? That's the second time Geraldine saved us today. We got lost out in North Providence at a Chinese restaurant and couldn't get a taxi back here. So yeah, it was delicious, but we couldn't get back, so she went and got us. This is a painting of a female Malinche from Okewinge, San Juan Pueblo. She's a summer clan. She has the brighter, the red manta and the black and the bare arms. So you can tell that she's from the summer clan in the village because of the colors and the way she's dressed. And they're actually living portraits. That's another thing I didn't realize when I started doing this. About 10 years ago, my wife and I started actively photographing people in the villages in Santa Fe and northern New Mexico. And we didn't realize at the time that we were documenting living people. But over time, people come to you and they say things like, that's my son or that's my daughter. And it's kind of fascinating to realize that they're portraits of living people. So they function in many ways. They function as kind of mixed media painting. They function, I have references to pop art. They have references to photography. They're also, portraits of people that are alive. And they show up and they kind of come back into your life and have like a little conversation with you, or they ask to reproduce the work. Or sometimes people will show up and want to be photographed underneath their painting with their children or their grandchildren. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't realize that when I started doing it, that the people actually kind of come back to you later and they have comments about what's going on. This is Butterfly. This is a guy from San Juan Pueblo. Okewinge. A lot of these images are Okewinge San Juan Pueblo dancers. They're one of the few villages that allow people to do photography. So we get a lot of dancer images from Okewinge in northern New Mexico. This is a gentleman, his Tewa name is Butterfly. Yeah. This is, I think it's Zuni, I think. Looks like a one-horned buffalo dancer kind of guy. This is a lino cut, my version of a reference to The Kiss. It's got a little summer and winter kind of corn dancer kiss in the little window in the left corner. I think it's an angel. It's supposed to be like an angel on top. This is a female Malinche buffalo dancer. She's a winter clan. She's winter. The earlier shot I showed you was, that is summer with a darker color, the black manta and the reds. This is winter with there's more white. In the villages, one of the major concepts is summer and winter, moiety or clan association. Most everyone in the village is going to be summer or winter clan. There's also smaller clan associations, but the major association is summer or winter clan. And I think that'd be based on, it's matriarchal, yeah? Yeah, it's matriarchal. It's based on your mom. Other ideas about it, because the people of the village are so much about kind of focusing on an agrarian lifestyle, a lifestyle of planting and harvesting crops. The songs and dances and the religion is very much based on rainfall. That's one of the most seminal sort of harmonic basic ideas of the village is balance and harmony, male and female energies sort of in balance, and rainfall. And as it was described to me, the white in the manta describes snow for the winter clan, and the snow is sort of the crystal captured form of the rain for the summer clan. And then also, certain sash elements refer to rainfall coming down. Oh, she's got a halo too. I don't know what that's about. Yeah, she's got a little halo floating over. I don't know. I mean, when you do something like this, I do a lot of painting, and sometimes things just have a feel to them. So it's not really a literal thing, but it just feels like something. And so at that point, it just felt like she was sort of an angel or angelic, or it was a halo. I don't know. It happened. I don't know how to explain it. It happened. This is an image of, it's non-photographic, once again. It's just easel painting. It's based on a series I did called the Bonnie and Clyde series. And they're portraits of Indian people that I went to school with. They're kind of remembered portraits. And they're kind of lovers. They're these guys and these girls, and they're kind of in these convertibles and cars, and they're drinking beer. They have like a beer can in the bottom of the picture plane, and they're smoking cigarettes, and they're kind of engaged in sort of like risky social behavior. And they're like parked in like parking lots, or they're out in the woods, and there's always like something odd about it. There are people that I knew when I was in school at the Institute of American Indian Arts, and some of them aren't here now. Some of them are gone. But there's always like this odd thing about, what's up with the gun, what's up with this whole drinking thing. There's sort of just kind of signages which suggest violence. They're sort of, coded paintings in the sense that I try to make them very beautiful, and I try and put interesting color combinations and draw them well and paint them well. But essentially, they're kind of dangerous. They have a feeling to me of being sort of unpredictable. I showed some of these at the Denver Art Museum, and the kids from the Columbine school massacre showed up, and they wrote comments on little pieces of paper, and they put them in a box, and they mailed them to me, which is really interesting. And the comments were really interesting. The kids were like, why are the people's faces, why are they wearing sunglasses? Why are they drinking alcohol? Why do they have guns? What's up with the guns? And those were the comments of the Columbine kids, what's happening? And they were all very sensitized from the shooting at Columbine about the violence of the guns. And I was like, that's it exactly. What is up with all that? So there are kind of references back to our own culture. It's not didactic. I mean, I don't have answers for that kind of stuff. It's not like there's not a narrative that I can tell you. Just that, at one point in my life, I was, around people that were drinking a lot and carrying guns around and acting kind of dangerous. Looks like he's about to shoot her, huh? These are, this is actually based on a photograph Melissa's cousin, the famous potter Jason Garcia from Santa Clara Pueblo took. He took a pair of Santa Clara dancers and modeled them after a famous Curtis photograph. And he reshot the Curtis photograph. They might have been, these are Tesuque dancers, might have been Tesuque dancers, maybe Santa Clara. But he took Santa Clara people and he reshot it. And then I took that and sort of used that image and kind of did my own thing with it. There's an interesting avenue pattern on the kilt of the dancer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with avenue symbolism in Rio Grande art, but that's a sort of prevalent water serpent figure. This is summer-winter, hot and cold, left and right. It's the butterfly dance at Pewaukee Pueblo. There's a halation of a gold butterfly. It's very kind of faintly done around the two figures. My wife actually did the butterfly dance at Pewaukee, and she brought that back to the village. It hadn't been danced there in many years, and she brought that dance back, and her Tewa name is Buanini, which is butterfly. This is a Pewaukee tribal member. This is another Pewaukee tribal member. This is the butterfly dance again. Same dance. You can see the bustles on the back of the woman's back, which is, it's an eagle feather bustle designed to resemble the butterfly wing pattern. And then it's been described to me in different ways. I've heard different interpretations of what the dance is about. I've heard it described as being part of a purification type ritual for veterans. I've heard that on occasion. More commonly, I've heard it as a mating, sort of fertility song about the two butterflies coming back to the village, and the male and the female land on a branch, and they copulate and they propagate the butterflies. So as I understand it, that's more likely what that is. These are two children from an old Harmon Parker's photograph. This is Coach T. Pueblo. They're actually sitting on the kiva at Coach T. Pueblo, and they're kind of just reclining, taking photographs, I guess. They probably didn't even know what was going on. You know, this is probably like 1920 or something, 1930. These kids probably didn't even realize what was happening at the time, and they're being photographed. This is a portrait of Pewaukee buffalo dancers. These are the women, and this is Jo Povey, my daughter, right here. She was probably about, what do you think, 9 years old? That's you? These are among the first photographic transfer paintings I did probably about 10 years ago, and they had a real heavy use of tar. I was using industrial roofing tar at the time to glaze the paintings, to give them a sense of sort of atmospheric depth and chiaroscuro. This is a deer dancer. It's kind of got a wacky background. I don't know what I was thinking, but I kind of like it. I mean, it strikes me as almost like someone else painted the background and then the figures kind of like pops out. But I don't know, I look a lot at, it reminds me like maybe like a Frank Stella maybe, I don't know, like some kind of like Frank Stella aluminum kind of background that's been flattened and had dancers stuck on top of it. These are hero twin references. It's the two twin children, kind of mirrored out. Eagle dancer. Kind of wild colors. Strikes me a little bit like what you'd think of if you went to Santa Fe and saw like a painting you didn't like, and you'd come back and you'd say, you know, what was that painting like? And you'd say, oh, it looked like it was painted in like a Santa Fe palette or something. It's kind of off kilter colors. These are eagles again. It's the line of eagles. This painting is actually almost the size. It's a gigantic painting. So to give you an idea, some of the paintings are very small, some of them are gigantic. This one's almost that size. These are men. This is the choir. You've been looking at a series of mostly dancers from the Rio Grande Pueblo villages. These are the Okawinge singers. These are the men. And they have these kind of wildly colored drums, which probably wouldn't be that wildly colored in real life. They're probably more like tan and sort of subdued. But they have this kind of ice cream cone configuration on the top of the drum where the leather cords are sort of tied off and they make a little pattern on there. I don't know if you can't really see it so well in here, but these would actually come through. There'd be like a leather element coming down, making little X's over the body of the drum. This is an arrow dancer from San Juan Pueblo. Comanche dancer, I'm sorry. This is a buffalo dancer. He's Winter Clan, Okawinge, San Juan Pueblo. And then, I don't know, for some reason I had these little shell icons in my mind. I was like, once again, references to pop and pop art, pre-existing paradigms in painting. And this was like, I think it was like the Gulf War I. And I was thinking to myself, everything seems to be about oil in the country, right? This kind of national zeitgeist seems to be about oil and oil energy concern. And so I just started sticking little icons of the shell thing in there, and people were sort of, and Santa Fe is a pretty conservative place, and people were kind of like, what's that about? Why is, I'm not sure that's, I don't understand it, but I didn't really understand it either, but it just seemed interesting to me. I like the way it looks, and it seemed to me a way to sort of talk about something which was, very specific to a cultural experience, and something which was kind of like a mainstream experience in the same kind of painting. This is a portrait of my wife's brother, Joe Talachi, and he is doing this is the male component of the butterfly dance. You saw frames of the butterfly dance female earlier, but there's a male and female. They're partners, and they do the butterfly dance. Like the song, it relates to male and female butterfly coming back together onto the branch. And this is the male. He's actually lieutenant governor in Milwaukee right now. And this central item is actually, it's a shrine motif, and it was based on some images I'd seen in the collection of Chuck Runzinski, who does Mile High Comics in Denver, and he's an avid collector of ancient Pueblo pottery. And he was describing it to me as kachina heads. He had a motif on his pot that had these sort of diamond things. And I was telling him, no, they're actually feathers on the edge of the shrine. And he was some anthropologist from Boulder said, this is what this is. These are proto-kachina mask references. I was like, no, that's not what they are. I've actually been in those spaces and seen that shrine. That's exactly what that is. They're feathers coming up off the end point of the shrine, and they placed cornmeal on those. And he was like, no, my anthropologist told me it was like a proto-kachina face. I was like, okay, all right. And then also, it has dots on one side to symbolize rain, and the absence of dots on the other side, these little hash marks coming down, to denote summer-winter clan, moiety separation again. Eagles, 2 eagles. This is an old image, once again, Harmon Parkhurst, Coach de Pueblo. In our own sort of ethnographics and histories, we refer to ourselves as the people of the village of the Stone Lions. So I titled this People of the Village of Stone Lions. And it has to do with, to me, the title or the meaning of that is our association with stone lion shrines in Bandelier National Park, which have been, sort of our lion shrines, the Mokach, that we pray to since time immemorial. This is an image I did. One of my nephews was a Marine in Iraq, and he came back with all of these, fascinating photographs from his time. He was in Ramadi during the insurgent uprising in Ramadi. So I took some of the images and just transcribed them and made paintings out of them. It was actually part of a show at the IAI Museum, I think 2008 or so, and it was on Native veterans and sort of service and different perspectives. There's the tank again. It's just, like the Eagle Dancer with the Coke cans. It's kind of like this little pop icon of the dancer and the tank. And I guess it's sort of a two worlds reference or two worlds motif. I'm not really didactic about it. I don't necessarily know what it means, or I don't have a statement. Like I can't tell you like this means this or something like that. But it just, as an artist, interests me. I thought it was kind of engaging. This is a piece I did called 55 Miles Per Hour, and it's also from the Akwesasne Notes, Voices at Wounded Knee, a photographic document, and it's tar. A lot of it, all the figures are painted in tar, and the background's in oil paint, and it has a it has a reference to a photograph in the Voices of Wounded Knee document in 1974, where these, I guess, federal agents come into the occupied town of Wounded Knee, and the AIM insurgency is holding the village, and they try and come in as postal service people, and the AIM guys stop them at checkpoints and pat them down and see if they have badges and weapons, and so it's just a reference to that. This is a drawing I did. Is it focused? Is that focused? It's a drawing I did. It's based on earlier compositions, the Summer and Winter Clan line at San Domingo again, and then it has references to the sort of vigas and the kind of architecture from the San Domingo Pueblo in the plaza. And then on the top, it's got this sort of, I don't know, kind of Jack Kirby space kind of reference. I don't know if you guys follow comic books at all, but I'm an avid comic book guy, so I take a lot of Jack Kirby stuff. And when I'm able to, I kind of drop it in. It's got Kirby, what they call Kirby crackle in the cosmos, like this kind of space crackle in the back, and it's got little Kirby airplanes from some Golden Age comic books. But again, it's kind of a two worlds motif without being like beating it dead or anything. It just has a reference to these kind of two worlds, different worlds, different types of iconography, different ways of structuring information. This is the piece, Bob will get a kick out of that. This is my brother and I. This is a Chungo Brothers painting. And it's, you can tell, it's a photograph of me and my brother. And we did a whole series of these skits where we dressed up like anthropologists. We kind of put on these little helmets and these kind of like, kind of khaki uniforms. And we got a whole series of pots from jackalopes in Santa Fe, these sort of Mexican pottery. And we had a studio assistant design them and paint them to look like old Anasazi pottery. And we went around burying them and kind of digging them up. And we did a photographic essay of it. And we also did a film of it. You can Google it on YouTube. It's called Search for the Anasazi, where we kind of go out and we kind of dig these things up. And I don't know if you guys know Roxanne Swensel, but that's her horse in the background. Roxanne's horse Techa. And then I also did these little images of pots around it. Just different styles of kind of, black on black and redware and high burnished pottery. At the time, I was thinking, I don't know if you guys follow this at all, but there's so much damage that gets done to native sites in northern New Mexico because of pot hunting. So people go out and they do all this, backhoeing and excavating, and they steal the pots out of the ground. And so I was just putting these pots around the edge of it because I was thinking to myself, if these guys are sort of the pot hunters, then what are they thinking of? What's the kind of the dream or the other kind of ambition of the pot hunters to kind of find the great pot?
Tell them the story of how you had it displayed and somebody came up and bought it.
Oh yeah. I showed it at my booth at Indian Market one year, and I also took little pieces of paper, like little pieces of parchment, on the four corners of the painting, and I drew in these little field notes. I made sort of faux field notes. And I think it was like Kenneth Chapman, who's one of the former SAR directors. He showed up and he was telling somebody how these were, he was in my booth and I was just standing there listening to him, and he was telling somebody how these were the Bandelier's footnotes. He goes, these are actual references to Bandelier footnotes. And he's like looking at it all, but it's all stuff that I kind of just invented and kind of these wacky things. I think this one has a skull in it. Like it's a reference to phrenology and sort of brain skull measurements, and they have different, like, kind of like, I don't know, some of them are actually kind of racist, or sort of these remarks about the Indian, like, peons who have to, like, dig, they're sort of attached to the archaeology crew that's digging stuff up, and it's just kind of odd stuff like that. That's it. Do you guys have questions or comments, or is it time to open it up for questions and comments? Okay. Yes. Huh? Question? Yeah.
Yeah. What, I have two questions. One is, can you talk about the process by which you transpose the photograph onto the canvas?
Yes.
And the second question is, what's the approximate scale of most of these books?
The process I use is called transfer. It's a transfer process. It's pretty straightforward. You can actually Google it. You could Google transfer, photo transfer, and it will come up. But essentially, I take a photograph, like something maybe this size, and I have a printer enlarge it to the scale that I want it to be. He can also mirror it or flip it or reverse it or alter it however I want. And then he prints it on paper for me, and I glue it into a panel. I use a fine birch panel because the grain's real tight. And then my wife actually helps me a lot with transferring, and my daughter too at one time. And so after it's glued in, it dries, and it's glued in sort of, media in. So the paper is actually visible on the back. And you wet the paper and wash it out, which is kind of a laborious process. But you're left with the media. The toner gets sort of fused into, or the ink gets fused into the white sort of panel. And the scale can be like anything like just tiny to like almost the size of the entire screen. It just depends. You can actually, this is another thing I didn't realize. This technique of using the printer to enlarge photographic information, it's used by graffiti artists now who do the pasting. They do the large scale paper pasting. So it's all referential to the scale of the printer. And you can do gigantic oversized pieces in strips. You basically lay it in different strips and kind of register it and glue it in. So the scale is almost, what you can imagine. But it can be very intimate and very tiny. The standard, 30 by 40 inches is kind of like, about like this, right? Almost the size of like, if the podium was like a kind of the 4 points of the canvas, like the podium probably to about this spot would be the kind of rectangle. It's a kind of standard size. A lot of it winds up in houses and collections, so people have a tendency in the Southwest to build stuff that fits in people's houses.
Oh, and a third question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you said, where it ends up, what amount or percentage or whatever of your patrons are actually Native American collectors?
There is not so many. Some, not so many. It's an interesting question. So much of this is, it's of the people, and it's portraits of the people, and occasionally Native folk will come and ask me to do portraits. I get some requests for like images of my mother and images of my kids and stuff, and I do that, and I love doing stuff for Native people, but because it's art and because of the price associated with it, oftentimes Native folk don't really collect it as much as they might want to. Yeah.
Mateo, you've done workshops at Cochiti.
I donate a lot of stuff. I donate work to museums. I donate time. I donate. Bob's referencing a workshop we did through the NMAI Smithsonian at Cochiti Pueblo, where we did a series of large images of Cochiti tribal members with the kids. They were children, and there were images of them dancing. And Povey was part of the project too. And then we gave the panels back to the village. So we do, and I teach, in terms of philanthropy. But the basis of the question is, can Native people really afford stuff like this? And the answer is usually not. Usually no. But there are other ways for them to have it. Sometimes I give them images. Occasionally, someone will show up and it'll be a portrait of them, and I'll give them a smaller version of it. Or
Do a lot of trading in art.
we trade a lot. Yeah, we trade a lot. There was another question. Yeah.
Yeah, you've had a lot of work that involves the eagle, and occasionally you talk about the Native American veterans. Were you influenced at all by Patrick Nakatani?
I know Patrick Nagatanya's work. I don't necessarily, probably not. Probably not. I mean, I know him. I was at UNM doing a MFA printmaking, Betty Hahn and Patrick Nagatani were there at the time. I knew Betty Hahn better, but nah, not really, no.
Do you have a specific reason for incorporating so many of the eagle rather than anything else?
I'm actually looking for photographs that have interesting sort of compositional spaces to them. So I like the positive and negative and the kind of contour and the outline. So I guess from a kind of formal perspective, in terms of looking at figure-ground relationships, I'm looking for something that's kind of energetic and has movement. It's got an interesting line to it. It's got an interesting contour. It would be, I mean, like a drawing question, basically. If the photograph, to me, the photograph's in a large drawing, and if I'm looking at it from that point of view, I'm interested in, what the composition's like and what the positive and negative and stuff like that. Yes?
You mentioned the Institute of American Indian Art. Were you a student there, or did you teach there?
Both, yeah. I was a student there. I think it was around 1986, and I taught there for 2 years as a full-time faculty, and I'm an adjunct. I go back every couple of years and teach.
We had 3 students from there as summer interns at the Hackman, back in the 80s.
Good for you.
And Phyllis Chavez was one.
That sounds familiar.
She's the Julep. She's the
Okay, all right. Yeah. Yes?
So when you talk about your artwork, you speak very much as an artist versus, say, an anthropologist. And I wonder if you think about years from now, when anthropologists are studying your work and trying to make associations with what it means about Native people, Native culture, do you ever think about that? Are you creating...
Leading them astray.
No, are you creating new ideas by some of the associations you're making?
I think yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily think of it in those terms. I mean, I like to paint. So, I'm a person who enjoys the act of painting. I like to draw and make things. And I think, always first in my mind is just kind of what do I feel like making, what do I want to do. And I'm very blessed that I have a life where I can, this is my main pursuit. This and raising up kids is kind of what I do. Having said that, I think that some of the best work might reach a point where it talks about culture and it talks about cultural synergy in different worlds and perspectives and things like that. So some of it aspires to that, and some of it is not necessarily about that. But yeah, I think it. I mean, it'll happen. I mean, I've generated enough work where, if you open a book in 20 years on, contemporary Santa Fe painting, some of this work will be in it. People will talk about it. But I don't know that. I mean, that's actually really. It's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of a reach for me. I don't know if it's. When I started out making paintings, I started out maybe at the age of 18, wanting to kind of change the world. I was very idealistic about it, and I thought that I was going to make painting that would be kind of transformative, and it would sort of raise people's level of consciousness. I had these very idealistic ideas. All this time later, I realized mostly I changed myself. I changed my own life and the world that I inhabit. And sometimes the work can reach the point where someone relates to it and they kind of connect with it and it kind of resonates at a higher level. But it would be sort of, I don't know, egotistical of me to think that I was doing something.
The reason that I ask is because I think of artists over the course of time and how I was struck by, you said, I just put that in there. I just felt like I had to put it in there. And don't you think probably artists of hundreds of years ago also did that at times? And
I'm sure.
Maybe
Yeah.
everything didn't
I'm
have
sure.
to be
I'm sure.
for a reason. Maybe sometimes they just wanted to.
It's intuitive. Yeah. No. I believe in intuitive stuff. I believe in color and line and things. I'm a person who usually uses my hands to make things. So I believe in a very primary kind of intuitive experience. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Things don't have to be literal. Things don't have to be didactic. Things don't have to be narrative. They can just be. They can just be. I mean, what does it mean when you put like a helicopter in, a little dancer, and I don't know what it means. I mean, it's just, if I were to tell you it was something like, very specific, it would be sort of kind of sad almost, that there was some kind of literal reading to this, and it was kind of, I look at it, there's a line in Julien Schnabel's movie Basquiat, where the guy's interviewing Basquiat, and he says, why'd you put this color here? And the guy in Basquiat, the guy who's playing Basquiat says, I don't know. Would you ask like a musician why you put that note there? Why is that? Why is the composition of the song like that? So it's like that. I mean, to me, it's kind of like I don't really I don't know how the answers exactly, but it just feels that way. If I like it, I feel it. The older I get, the more I can kind of trust a kind of feeling. It seems authentic to me, and I just that's enough. I mean, and if other people come to that or like it or have a response to it, then I think it's great. But mostly, I kind of paint because the actual process of painting is really interesting to me. There's also a line in Lucian Freud's, a biography on Lucian Freud, where he's quoted as saying, painting is addictive. The act of painting is addictive, more so for the painter than for the painting or the viewer. It's just really for the artist. Right? So it's kind of my muse. Yes?
I just find it really interesting that you paint on photographs. I'm a visual artist myself, and I'm reading a book right now it's called The Invisible Art, the art of cinematography, matte painting at the Use of Cinema. And during the studio years, the MGM house used to take a photograph of a site and then glue it onto a big piece of masonite, and then they would paint in the part that they wanted to film on the top of the castle or something like to complete the painting. And just looking at what you do to the photographs, it must be really fascinating.
Is that matte painting? I mean,
It's matte painting.
Yeah, it's matte painting. Yeah.
A lot of your favorite scenes, like in Gone in the Wind or The Wizard of Oz, a lot of their favorite scenes are actually paintings.
Sure.
But it must be really satisfying to take the. You got a photograph, which is an external thing. You just take a picture of reality, but then you can take paint. It's almost like being able to take emotions or natural forces and making them spreadable like butter or cake frosting or cement or something like that. Just to express yourself, turn yourself inside out and make it spreadable on the painting or something like that.
It was very liberating to me. Yeah. When I figured out how to do this, it was extremely liberating to me. I've actually done it for about 10 years now, and I can't take it anymore. I can't take painting on photographs anymore. But when I first did it, it was very amazing. It was like this energy came to me, and I was released. And I'd struggled so long with drawing, and my drawing skills were sort of rough initially. And to be able to take a photograph and then it really made it so that I could just paint on top of something or into something or around something, and I didn't have to actually, draw something and then paint into that. Now, I'm a little more comfortable with that, and I'm actually going back to earlier types of working without photography because I just have done it for so long that it doesn't have that that energy you're talking about. But for a long time it did. Yeah, probably about 6 or 7 years. It was really amazing. Yeah.
Very raw.
It was very raw and very direct. I mean, it's very disposable in a way, I mean, if you think about the kind of mentality of an artist who is actually, drawing something, a figure-ground relationship, they do an underpainting, they kind of scale it, they do all these kind of things formally to create space, and then they colorize it and they do all this stuff. And so when you get to that point, I mean, there's so much time and energy invested in it that people are not usually willing to destroy it. I mean, if you look at some of the, I'm trying to remember this guy's work. There's an artist, I should know his name, but he does this process, where he does this kind of building up of the paint, and at the very end of his career, he starts scraping it down. And so the images are just, you could tell they're very beautiful portraits of people, these female portraits really love, and then there's like a palette knife mark that's just like a paint knife that just goes right through it. And so it's almost like this kind of act of rebellion, right? It's like kind of mark up something which has this kind of classical art historical feel to it, and it's built to a sense of chiaroscuro and sfumato and all this stuff. And you kind of, but if you take a photograph and put that on something like a piece of paper or a canvas, it's very disposable in a sense. It's kind of liberating. You can destroy it and kind of make something which you might not have felt comfortable doing initially.
And the way you, applying paint onto a surface like that, there's something very revolutionary about it. In other words, imposing, idealism onto a scene. You're stamping an image with your branding it.
It's very macho stuff. Yeah, no, it has references to kind of abstract expressionism, action painting. It's got very heavy marks and it's very truncated. Yeah, no, it is that. It's very adrenaline based. It's a very adrenaline based way to paint. Initially, it was very intoxicating to me, but now I'm actually, like I said, I'm kind of sort of through that phase a little bit, and I'm trying to go back to some earlier ideas I had about just drawing and painting without photography. But no, it was all those things. Yeah, it was very. I felt very kind of like an iconoclast, like doing this. But I mean, and here again, I'm very conscious of the fact that this is all nostalgia at this point, right? Just the idea of taking photography, it's like it exists in Rauschenberg's work and Warhol's work, and there's a whole history of Curtis photography, Edward Curtis. So there's this whole history of how images of Native people are represented, and how they're transcribed, and who takes them, and what the perspective is, and what the use is. And it's kind of, for me to say that it's very revolutionary. It's not revolutionary at all. It's actually kind of like, it's all been done, really, in the 60s in New York. So, by that time, what I do now is sort of different because I'm a Native person, I have a Native voice, but the ideology of it and the science of it and the ideas of it are sort of, they're nostalgia at this point, largely. Yes?
Are there changes in culture that are affecting your newer work? You come from a culture within a wider society, the world, and are there changes that are impacting you and the work that you're producing now?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
You had earlier work that reflected where you were with people carrying guns and freedom. Are there things now over time in your culture that are now impacting changes? If you said your work is changing.
Yeah, I think the question is, are things in the culture impacting my work? Is my work changing? I think for me, my life is changing. So one of the major things in my life now is I'm sober. So I've been sober maybe about 12 years or so, and that's been sort of important to me. My work, I think, was sort of darker earlier on, and it dealt with things that were maybe more violent, and it had kind of a stark. Even some of the stuff was black and white, right? It had this kind of high contrast kind of a feel to it, and maybe it's a little bit expressionist. And now I think that the work is a little more maybe modulated. It's got more color, more landscape references, less gun motifs and things like that. So yeah, I think maybe less in the culture, but maybe just more in myself, that what I'm doing is just reflects a kind of personal change that I'm experiencing.
No more questions. Let's thank Mateo for a wonderful talk. Thank you.